Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my baby, I make plans for 7:45, then I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, CFN. Hopefully everyone is having a good Monday. They had a great weekend. I'm sure your Monday was no different than mine. It was busy, maybe a little overwhelming. Maybe you weren't ready for it. Yeah, all the above. Tick all the boxes. I know I do. I will say this. I couldn't do this without some folks here that show up on a regular. Lloyd, thanks for all your sharing, my friend. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a loyal CFNer, dude. We truly, truly appreciate that. And Steve, yep, said it best, bud. All the beautiful people. Shane Richard's in the house. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Richard Dunlop is also doing double duty and has been sharing up a storm. You two lads, I can't thank you enough. Joe's in the house. How you doing, Joe? Nice to see you here on a Monday. As always, Steven's in the house. How you doing, Steven? Ed McKenzie is also here sharing some time on a Monday with us. Really appreciate this. Yeah, baby. Absolutely. We are so lucky to have you folks join us as you always do. I tell you, we are so excited about tonight. It is yet another visit from the one and only Barb Carey. Can't wait. Captain Barb Carey, I should say. Pete's in the house. How you doing? Nicky Huck said, yes, sir. What's up, brother? How you doing? Yeah. Good to see you, my friend. Eve's in the house. Donnie. Oh, this is awesome. Tony's here. Tony, thanks for all of those tags, dude. Hopefully you win, man. Hopefully it gets you something. Ashley's in the house. Oh, thanks, guys. That's all I could say. Thank you for joining us. We will make it worth your while. As I have said, very, very honored to have the one and only Yvonne Brown hosting with me. She's going to be co-hosting tonight because it is ladies' night. It's always a pleasure to have Yvonne and, of course, all the OWA ladies visiting and sharing some time with us. And, of course, this lady in particular, I get really excited when I get a chance to talk to Barb. She's cool. She is so cool. And we are very lucky to have her amongst us tonight. She's going to be sharing a whole bunch of stuff that she's got upcoming. Give us a little bit of a time lapse, maybe, of what she's been busy doing. And when I say busy, holy smokes, man. Like, oh, I can't wait for her to get on that. But I'll tell you, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Captain Barb has to share with us tonight. Also, I need to mention this to you folks. It has been passing around as it is right now. I know there's some people that are probably coming back from the visitation. The ceremony was all today. Would have loved to have been able to get it off work, but I couldn't. But as we all know, our good friend Gallo is no longer with us. They did have a wake and a burial ceremony, or at least some kind of funeral ceremony. Don't know if it was burial today, but at the same time, this godforsaken thing came out, which is nothing but a scam. So if you see this as a friend request, delete it immediately. Unfortunately, someone is taking advantage of someone that is not even alive anymore. I mean, there's no end to this. But again, I just wanted to give our deepest condolences, our thoughts, our wishes. It is a tough time of year, approaching Christmas, and now you've got kids that are without a dad, and it's awful. But unfortunately, Gallo is no longer with us. We'll be thinking of you, dude, long into the next decade and years to come. You will be sorely missed. Your energy was something that was unique to our industry, and I'll tell you, you did a lot of wonderful things in a short period of time for the fishing industry and our fishing community at large. So thanks for your efforts, dude, and we will be thinking of you as you will sorely be missed. Speaking about Christmas, I know Richard would be totally upset if I didn't mention this. Of course, if you are looking for swag, we have obviously an issue when it comes to Canada Post. We are doing our very best to remedy that issue. So stay tuned for that. Be patient, and Richard and I are going to be working on that. So I will beg you folks to stay tuned. And of course, our two wonderful CFN and OFC Nation retreats, August 10th to the 16th. We're back up at Horwood Lake Lodge. This year's price is $9.99. It includes your meals, your boat rental, shared accommodations, fuel, bait, and of course, a nightly fish fry. All that for under $1,000 plus taxes. It's always a highlight of the summer, and I'm really looking forward to getting back. So if you are interested in joining us on the 10th to the 16th, please get a hold of Warren and or Doris. That is all the information you need. Please reach out to them and get your butt booked in a bed. And last but not least, of course, our OFC Nation retreat. It is the 4th annual up at Camp McIntosh. And as it is a Monster Monday, of course, you have your chance between the dates of 24th and the 28th of September to catch your monster, because these are some of the monsters that have been caught over the years at the retreat. It's really something, I mean, at the end of the day, it's more about just getting folks together. But when you see the quality of fish that come out of this body of water in this area of Georgian Bay, makes you why it's not fully booked every single year. But we're certainly working on that and looking forward to hearing that Andre and Tracy got your call, and any of the pertinent information that you need is there and is ready for you. I think that's pretty much it for me when it comes to announcements. We are going to have a power hour this Wednesday. We have our special guests. I know Christelle is coming on. I'm not 100% sure if Jess is, but we are going to have Daddy and myself interviewing, I think, at least Christelle and possibly Jessica Naveau. So stay tuned to that. With that, I will take us to a quick commercial, and then we will bring in Yvonne. Stay tuned.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is Yvonne Brown.
It's Flash Yvonne.
How you doing, Yvonne?
I'm good. I'm wonderful. And I love your hoodie.
Yes, well, as do I. And you know why I love it the most? Because it fits. It fits so wonderfully. It was interesting. This was one of the things that I set aside. Usually there's a few props, not a lot, but a few props. And I made sure I set this aside because I wanted to represent you ladies who did wonderful, wonderful things. Was just recently at the Ultimate Ice Fishing Show, and I ran into Chris McDougall. What an honor it was to see her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. She, you know, as I said, it was such a candid conversation with her.
Mhm.
Obviously, we all know the health struggles that she's
Yeah.
dealing with. She is a warrior, to say the absolute least. But
Yeah.
the one thing that, as I said, my dad always appreciated is when he was fighting cancer, was that people spoke to him normal, like they
Yeah.
treated them normally. And
Mhm.
yeah, I will say I want to thank my dad for teaching me that, because unfortunately, when someone is going through a situation that you're not really sure of, and maybe you don't want to ask or dive
Yeah.
into, just talk to them normal. There's, as
Mhm.
it was a great conversation, really great to see
Oh,
Chris.
good.
Of
I'm
course, a
glad.
unified OWA presence was certainly there.
Yes, I heard there was, I think there was over 20. I had intended to go. I can't remember. Something came up, and but I heard that there was quite a representation, like over 20 of the OWA ladies were there, and you could see blue all over the place. So
Yep. Yeah,
that
no, you
was it. Yeah.
definitely could. And as I said, you guys were well represented, as you always are when it comes to the angling industry. And I'll tell you, listening to some of the, and again, I can't thank you enough for bringing this incredible person to our lair. But Barb Carey, she holds so much clout and respect in this
Yeah.
industry. And to think, you can empathize the struggles that she would have had to get to where she is. I mean, can you
Yeah.
speak to that? Because I'm sure
Well,
only you could speak eloquently about it.
Barb's a huge advocate in increasing female representation in the fishing community. Like she will contact companies where, like she has had, let's say it's their annual promotion brochure, magazine, whatever. And like she goes through it and she'll say, why aren't there any women in this? Or
Yeah.
why is there only one woman? And she can speak more to that. She has an initiative called Women on Ice. The big ice anglers like Wisconsin, Minnesota area. So they do spend a lot of time out during the winter. And yeah, she can definitely speak to that. That is one of her passions, and just growing and proper representation too, right? Like we're not out there, in bikinis holding fish, and like that's not the real female angler. So we're all
No,
covered because we don't want to show.
well,
But
I'm not female, and I still want to cover up myself. I can empathize about that. I'm sure you have some announcement before we get to our special guest. I'm sure you'd like to share a few things that are upcoming in OWA.
yeah, I just wanted to say first, I haven't. I went down to do the Wisconsin Women Fish. They have an annual fish camp in the fall. That's kind of like their end of season type event.
Mhm.
And I haven't seen the ladies in person in probably 6 or 7 years. So it was great to spend some time with them. It's going to be the 20th anniversary of Fish Camp in 2026. So I'll be returning then. I had a fantastic time. I shared the cabin with Ricky and Barb and two other ladies, Jenny and Terry, and I just had a fantastic time. It was great. We did some fishing and chatting and just socializing, and it was nice because Barb's organization, they're huge in volunteering and supporting and running events. She gets quite a bit of help, so it was nice to see that and help a little bit and not have to be involved in the organizing.
It's
So
true. There's a lot of work that goes on, and of course, some of
mhm.
the events that I see that she'll talk about
Yeah,
tonight. There's quite a few ladies there, so
yeah,
that's a big puzzle to put together and a lot of working parts. So yeah,
yeah.
again, I just think whatever she does is like top shelf, and some of the
Mhm.
things that she says in some of her content, I can relate to. Even as a guy, I can relate to a lot of the content
Mhm.
she shares as a woman, and I don't know, I get taken back every time I see her being featured on a show or this, that, or anything else. But yeah, needless to say, we're pleased to have her. But again, I wanted to get to your announcements
Yeah.
first before we got to Barb.
Yeah, I just have a couple. We recently had our Christmas social at the Hunting and Fishing Heritage Center at the OFAH. That was really well attended. We had Lisa Goodyear as our guest speaker. She's Canada's only female full-time muskie guide.
Cool.
And every year, the volunteer team, I guess, takes up a collection, and they get me something for Christmas in appreciation for, what we do throughout the year. And they gave me a trip for 2 to go fishing with Lisa. Yeah, so I'm going to book a date in 2026. So really looking forward to that.
Ooh,
And we have one of our ice fishing weekends. The registration is open up. It's the ice fishing weekend. We are up at just south of Parry Sound. And you can find all that information on our website.
very, very cool.
And that's it.
Right on. Well, without further ado, let us not hold back. Let us not wait any longer. But just in case folks don't remember the last time that Barb was with us and that she spent a lot of time explaining her timeline of how she got from here to there. Let's learn a little bit more about Barb and this bit that was done by, I believe it's Wisconsin Channel 58. CBS did it. Much like Sunday morning, anybody that watches Sunday morning, obviously Sunday mornings, but how they do a lot of the documentaries and incredible news items. It's really well put together. And I think that would be probably a great segue to introduce and talk to the one and only Barb Carey. So everybody sit back and have a listen.
Men are answering the call to go fish. A report from the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation found females now represent more than 1/3 of total anglers. In our Sunday morning spotlight, Stephanie Rodriguez is with the captain who's made it her duty to get more females into the sport.
As long as you're fishing, the possibility of something exciting can happen at any moment.
Casting a line for a bite that might not ever happen is worth the wait for Barbara Carey, better known as Captain Barb.
Fishing is often underrated. I think that, for youth today, they talk about all the sports like football and basketball and all that stuff. But you can only do that for so long. Fishing is something you can do your whole life.
The former police officer and nurse grew up fishing, but didn't see anyone like her behind the helm.
I never saw any other women fishing, so I always wondered why.
So she grabbed her gear and decided to change that.
I started having fishing events for women like 20 years ago.
Captain Barb is the founder and president of Wisconsin Women Fish.
It's just about sharing the information and learning and going on adventures together.
Every year, the group holds a dozen get-togethers.
And I'm like, there's a women's fishing club in Wisconsin, and I've never heard of it. Like, I need to join right now.
Vice President and First Mate Ricky Pardun stumbled across the group 10 years ago and says it was the best catch ever.
It really changed my life, that first event. Everyone helped each other. They were cheering for each other, like, oh, you don't have that, use mine. Immediately after my first event, I couldn't wait for the next event.
While Wisconsin is the namesake, women from anywhere can join.
We currently have over 650 members from 23 states and 2 Canadian provinces, and they're ranging in age from 18 all the way to 87.
For each color, the line will drop 5 feet.
Captain Barb says it's about having fun while teaching the ways of the water to women to keep female fishers hooked.
What I see happening is once they know and they become more skilled, then they're giving it back. We have many members that are volunteering for high school fishing clubs and youth programs, and they've become DNR certified angling educators.
Being a U.S. Coast Guard captain is just one way she inspires others.
On and off the water, you're learning something. And everything that she knows, she's passing on to others and supporting them and encouraging them and just making people better and more confident.
As she continues to sail against the current in a male-dominated sport, she welcomes everyone to join her on Lake Michigan.
The people that we take out love it, and it's kind of addicting, and they don't think they can do it, but we take them out and show them how.
And if you're hesitant, don't be. Captain Barb's here to keep you afloat.
So dream big and kick the doors down if they're not opening for you. And if you need any help, reach out, because this is what I do.
This is what you do, and this is who you are, and we are so honored and pleased to have you here with us yet again, Barb. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks
Well,
for
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
It is-
anytime.
that piece that was put together was really, really well done. Was it just done in a day, just out on the water, like a one take wonder?
Well, nothing is what it appears on TV. And if you knew the real story, you'd be laughing even harder. The poor reporter that was with us ended up not feeling well in the boat. So that was kind of a disaster in some regard. But so we had to have the camera guy come back a second time. In her defense, it was kind of rough that day. All the footage you saw when we were fishing is a calm day when the cameraman came back to get a little bit more footage. But you know how it is when you're trying to film a show or something, nothing goes as planned.
100%. And I will say, I think, we've probably jumped ahead a little bit in terms of the timeline of how we got to that bit that you just saw. Because did I hear you're now a captain? And I'm not sure that everybody knows that you're a captain, but tell us the journey that was to become a Coast Guard certified captain.
Well, the whole time I've been, when I started 20 years ago, initially I started because of ice fishing, because I never saw any women ice fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what started my producing events for women. It was all about the ice. And then that started going so well. We started doing some open water stuff. And when we first started, like our summer events, not one person even brought a boat. Nobody had boats. So now when we have fish camp, we have I think 33 big boats, like 25 kayaks, and we're like juggling pier space and stuff to get everyone's boat in there. And the people that previously didn't even have a boat are now trolling for big walleyes on big water. So we kind of pride ourselves on the educational aspect that we give. And that's one of the reasons that we don't have any competitive events. I mean, we want to just be helping each other all the time. We don't want to be competing against each other. And when I looked in the horizon, I thought, okay, what is the last frontier? What is untouched? And I love salmon fishing. I've been salmon fishing for a long time. I really like big water. And I never, ever saw any other female captains. So I said, that's it. We got to do that next. So I got my captain's license, which I'm really proud of. It was, I feel, quite an accomplishment. And now I bought a 25-foot boat, and away we go, being a charter captain on Lake Michigan and taking women out and show them how they can do that. And now we have other women that did it. They learned, they're getting their captain's license, and it's just like all coming full circle. I mean, that is super cool feeling.
I can't even begin to imagine. But a lot of folks don't know the story behind what you've been discussing, which is the Queen of Kings.
Yeah.
Great name. Who was the one that came up with the name? Because I know you were running a contest.
Well, we did run a contest, but, Ricky, my first mate, is just unbelievably talented, with graphics and ideas. And she's a great angler. We're a good team out there. Mm-hmm. So even though we had the contest, she had already come up with that name. And I thought, well, maybe someone can come up with something better, but nobody did. So she actually won the contest. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Won by default. I like it. But of course, the journey to getting this boat on the water and seaworthy and basically up to the level that you wanted it to be was a bit of a journey in itself.
Oh, it was a nightmare.
I didn't want to say that.
There were so many things wrong with it. We didn't know, getting into it. But the good thing is, we kind of documented everything in our Facebook videos and stuff. And we kind of really gained some followers because so many people were interested in doing that same thing, but they didn't really know how to go about it. And we learned so much about it. And we kind of try to share the good and the bad. That's the thing about me. What you see is what you get. And some days are bad and some days are good. And I'm not going to candy coat anything. If things are a disaster, I'm going to say, hey, this is a disaster, So, and people, I think, appreciate that. In fact, a little funny story. I ran into this guy in a bait shop in Sheboygan our home port is. And he goes, "Oh, are you Captain Barb? I've been watching your videos, and my whole life I thought I wanted to get a boat like that and do that. But I thought, well, I just thought my time has passed. I'm too old." And then I saw you and I said, well, gee, if she can do it, I can do it. And it's this tagline that we've been telling women, the whole time, like, if she can do it, you can do it. And this guy was telling me the same tagline back about himself. So that was pretty cool.
When I was at fish camp in October, I did say to Barb and the other ladies I was staying with, like one of the first or second events that I went to in Wisconsin, I was really impressed with the number of boaters. And our, like, Ontario Women Anglers was still, I mean, some ladies had boats, but it's grown. And what it is today was similar to the experience I had when I first joined Wisconsin. And now I'm floored by watching ladies, like, with boats and like bringing them to events, or bringing them, like, just bringing people out on the water on their own time. And now, like, I'm still novice boater. I got the boat last year. So I think it's just great to see the growth in the two clubs, and the transition from, like, beginner angler now to sort of novice boater.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long to get better if you have some support and some good education, and like the old days, where nobody would tell you anything about fishing. Everything was a big secret. Oh, where'd you get those? Well, I ain't telling you that, and so we just kind of opened the door with communication and teaching and sharing everything, and you get good fast if you have good mentors and good people helping you. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Amen. 100%. Couldn't agree more. And two of you are great mentors to female anglers, but all anglers as a whole. I mean, as I said, whoever it is that follows along and watches your videos, I am definitely one. I'm having one. I forget what they call it, but a fan gate. Is it? I'm having a fan episode here tonight because I do follow you on a regular, Barb. And one of the things that I truly love about you, because I'm no different. You're not there to get views. You're not there to get follows and likes. And I know that is part of the business and it's part of the industry, but like you, I'm no different. I would love to get, say you and Yvonne and Jim and Jay and Lawrence, a whole whack of views when we do this, but it's not for me. And I love that about you, is that, at the end of the day, you are a great foundation through which other people can learn. And I would have to say, of the ladies on the other side of the pond, you got it going on when it comes to being a mentor. You are a great path for someone to follow, great shoes to follow it. So keep that up. I can't say enough good things about you. Now, in terms of significance, obviously with this boat, I think it's really cool. And you can explain the significance of this picture.
Well, that one is one of the, I don't remember that, we caught probably 100 of those this summer. I don't know which one that is, but we had a banner year, I mean, we had 20 fish days, 20 for 20 with people out in the boat, and big steelhead, big, the brown trout once in a while, but the king salmon, the coho salmon, it was just, I've been doing it a long time in the small boat. So a lot of the other captains around the harbor, it's not like I'm the new kid on the block. I might have a new boat, but I've been around for a while. So, I got a lot of respect from them, which made me feel good. And plus, catching fish really boosts your confidence. And we did pretty well this year. In fact, I'm thinking, geez, I think I need a bigger boat.
Already?
So we'll see what happens, but
I'm surprised that you'd actually want to go down that road after watching that journey, that nightmare, if you call it, of that previous boat. So I'm going to say that the boat that you do get, if it is bigger, is going to be a little bit more turnkey.
Yeah, well, yeah, one would think. I am older. I don't have that much time. I want to get on the water right away, and this one about killed us. So, but it's good to go. It's running good. We'll probably just hang on to it. We're not sure, but that's the thing with fishing. You know, I mean, it's just you have the ability to have adventures. And sometimes I'm out on the water, especially on big water, you know, and the sun is coming up or the sun is setting, and you're in this place and you just have this glorious feeling come over you, and you feel like one of the luckiest people in the world, because not everyone gets to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and add the fishing to it, you know, we have that potential for something exciting to happen any minute. You know, you guys know what it's like. We all have passion for angling, and that is something that is so special. And I am so thankful that I'm wired that way, that I have that, and I have the opportunity to do it. So, you know, keeping these opportunities available for everybody and to grow the sport with people that they don't even know what they're missing. You know, you plug this into their life and all of a sudden their life goes in a whole different direction. It's so much better. It seems like just fishing, but it's much bigger than that. It's a much bigger deal than a fish.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
We're seeing that too. Even for myself, I just like, I mean, the fishing's kind of a bonus. I just like seeing all the ladies and chit chatting about whatever, just catching up. The social part, the camaraderie. That's means more to me these days than catching a fish.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think for women, you know, it kind of helps with self-confidence, you know, like with just feeling, you know, proud of yourself when you get it and you have these achievements. And if you can do that, you take those skills throughout the rest of your life, and it applies as being a parent, you know, being an employee or employer. And I just can't, I think like Allison just said, it's just so much bigger than just fishing.
Yeah. It's so true. And that's the thing too, that's hard maybe for some who do have some success, keeping humble, staying humble. And it's something that I try to pass on to everybody that's sort of new, that comes up through the industry, because I was there too. I know exactly what it's like. And if there's any advice that I love to give folks is just stay humble.
Yeah,
for sure.
Your path is going to be a lot less rockier if you are. We have a couple other fish picks that I want to share. That I mean, this one's I won't go to this one first. We will start with this one. This is a unique fish, or at least the story behind this fish. I'll let you explain if the memory serves you correctly, but you caught a lot of big crappie as well as bluegill on this body of water, and this, I believe, was your personal best.
Oh God, you know, I need more than that. You know, I catch a lot of those these days, you know, but one place that I've been really spending a lot of time is the UP of Michigan. Yeah. And there is, you know, it's kind of like you Canadians, you know, you have that untouched water, no houses are around everywhere, you know, it's kind of remote stuff. And those areas are fairly close to where I am. And that's the thing, you know, being able to go to a body of water and find fish like that shouldn't just be to an exclusive group. Any angler learning a little bit can figure out how to do that. And that's what I'm teaching at my seminars this year. Last weekend, I was in the St. Paul show. This weekend, I'm going to Oshkosh. We're talking about how you can find fish like this, you know, about how to find the lakes that hold those fish to begin with, how to get there, how to break down the water. And with all these mapping options now where you can highlight different colors and these spots just pop out at you, it almost makes it too easy. But still, a lot of people don't know about it. And those fish, you know, that you get that feeling you catch a 15-inch crappie, or this fall we were catching 11.5-inch bluegills on big fathead minnows. And we're going back as soon as we can get up there on the ice. We're going back there. I want to get one of those. I know there's 12s at least.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, on that point, there is a little snippet that I did pull down from, I believe it's your timeline, in regards to some of your upcoming seminars at these shows and what folks can expect when they see you and Ricky up on.
This year are going to be about mapping, how you can have a map in your hand, take you right to the fish if you know how to dial in the spots on your map. Super helpful for finding fish. You can't catch them if you can't find them.
It is so true. That is so true. But dive a little bit deeper into that for some of us who aren't able to make these shows and get to see it firsthand. What is it that you're really talking about when it comes to these seminars?
Well, in the old days, I ran gas augers out of gas, trying to find the spot on the spot, trying to find a river channel or something. You never really knew exactly where you were because paper mapping was different. Now there's these apps you can carry in the palm of your hand, and there's new ones out. The technology is coming out so fast, and they're improving it so quickly. But you can color code mapping contour depths. For example, in the spring, I take 80 women crappie fishing. A little pressure there to find fish for 80 women. You need more than one spot. So I did pre-fishing. I did my homework. I found out, they're in a little bit deeper water. So I can change the map to highlight in pink, anything from 25 feet to 30 feet. And then I look at my map that I'm holding in my hand on my phone. It shows me where I am, and it shows me where all these little pink holes are. And every single one of those little pink holes held crappies. So breaking it down like that, another example of a scenario in the seminar is walleyes were in like deep water, like 25 feet, but that 25 feet had to be really close to shallow water. Well, now if you make that shallow depth purple and you make the deep water pink, there's only that many spots on a big lake that hold that, so you can eliminate all the rest of it, target those spots where the fish are, so much easier to find. So that's what I talk about in my seminars. Now they're adding DNR stocking data and lakes nearby where you are. And it's just the volume of information. And this is where the younger anglers really excel. Because all the apps and the electronics and all that stuff is so easy for them because they've been dinking around with computers their whole life.
Yeah.
Not like us older people, the learning curve is a lot slower to figure out a lot of this new stuff that's coming out. But once you master it, it makes it a lot easier to find the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as the upcoming ice fishing season that you have with the club, are there any events that you'd like to mention or speak about the Women on Ice project?
Well, we're doing a pike spearing event coming up here in a couple weeks in Minnesota. We'll go anywhere for an event. It just doesn't have to be Wisconsin. And that's the first time we've ever done something like that. That sold out. A lot of gals are interested in that experience. Mm-hmm. That's kind of something that's different. And then our ice fishing 101 class is coming up in January. And what's so fun about that is the people that have taken the class, several years ago are now coming back as the mentors and as the teachers. And to see that come around full circle, and it's hard to do everything myself personally, all these events. Ricky and I just can't keep up. But now we have other leaders and other really good anglers that have stepped up, and they're running some of these events and they're teaching others. So it's like a giant snowball, and everybody's getting bigger, and the word can spread more, and we can learn more. In the meantime, we can be out experiencing and learning something we don't know, so we can bring it back and teach. And it's just working perfectly.
That's great.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to ask. And of course, I don't even know where to start because you have been so busy. You have been chartering, you have been guiding, you've been mentoring, you've been hosting events, you've been putting on productions at various shows. You're all over the place. But, in terms of the fishing, I'd love to see you get the opportunity, get the time, Yvonne, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to actually get out and fish. And I'll tell you, your personal best rainbow, I believe, was this one. Decent out that end of Superior. Is like, I don't know what it is with the fishing out there, but my Lord, you have some big trout.
Big trout. It's actually those are on Lake Michigan in the water.
Sorry.
Yep, the water's a little warmer than Lake Superior. I think the forage is unbelievable. So they're just, we catch some of these big 25-pound king salmon, and they're throwing up fish and pooping fish in the boat, and they're just gorging themselves. So there's so much food, and it's it's a great fishery that, you know, in our part of Lake Michigan, and it's about 100 miles for where I live. So we just kind of go camp out there in the summer, you know, while we're over there doing it. And it's a lot of fun. Now I might have a Canadian adventure that I might be able to go on. Yeah. So you guys have heard of Baker's Narrows?
Yep.
Up there, you know, it's like this primo. Well, I might have an opportunity to go to this new outpost, which is north of them. It's like, geez, it's got to be close to the Arctic Circle because they're pretty north up there anyway. And they bought another property. It's on a lake I can't even pronounce, and I don't remember the name of it offhand, but I'm gonna, if it comes to be, we're gonna be doing a lot of social on it. But a buddy of mine is up there right now, and they're rehabbing this kind of this abandoned fishing village. And there's a lake up there that's been untouched. There's a reported 50-pound lake trout in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's in, I just looked it up. It's near Flin Flon,
Yes.
Manitoba.
Yes,
Flin
it is
Flon,
near
yeah.
Flin Flon. Yeah, wherever that is. I never even heard of it, you know. So it's way up there. I don't know. Hopefully it'll come to be, but I'm going to try to make it happen. You know, this is kind of like now or never kind of thing because it's just starting. And I think once it gets going, I'd never be able to afford it. But I have a buddy up there right now that's working on it. And, you know, he might be able to sneak us in the back door this year while they're still rebuilding if it works out. But that would be an epic adventure.
That's awesome. That is so cool. And yes, anywhere up there is guaranteed to be a trophy hunter's paradise. So I look forward to seeing you holding up a 50+ pound lake trout in the very near future.
And you can, you know, we'll see what happens, but hopefully this season, this winter, it'll come to fruition.
That's awesome. You have a lot of species that you love targeting. You talk about species specific fishing trips where folks are going specifically to target a species of fish, like you just mentioned, the lake trout, and that seems to be a bit of a trend. You know, I mean, Yvonne talking about getting on with Lisa Goodyear to target muskie. So this is becoming a trend, but we all love to be multi-species anglers. And I think one of the greatest questions that I loved your answer to was, if there was one fish that you could fish for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it was walleye.
Yeah.
And I think that's
right up Scotty's alley.
I think that's why I love you.
Yeah, you know, and I remember, you know, I would try. So walleye was this elusive species that was harder to, anyone can catch a bass. I mean, what's so hard about that? But the walleye were always so hard, you know. And I remember when I first was fishing with a boat, you know, that very first walleye you would get of the season, you know, the season opens in May, and, you know, it might be the end of July before I actually caught one. It would be like I'd open a bottle of champagne. It was just such a celebration. But now it's like, now it's so easy because I know stuff, and so many people are in that, oh, I just want to catch a nice walleye. You know, I'm lucky enough to be in the Dirty 30 Club. I got one over 30, but we can go right close to the house here and pretty much catch them when we want them. But to be able to give somebody else that gift, to be able to do that, even from shore, we do a lot of shore fishing for walleyes, and I've got some of my biggest walleye shore fishing. Wow. And that's something that there's no barrier. There's no boats. Anybody can do it. If you can get to the riverbank, you can catch them. And that's what we're showing now. And it just opens up the possibilities for so many people to really improve their skills and to catch good quality fish, good food for the family, you know, and that is really where my passion really started.
I love the story about the champagne and how sometimes it would be August, September by the time you pop the cork on the bottle.
That's true. It's true. Yeah.
So cool to hear that story. I will bring up one that I also love too. And of course, it is a huge significance because it is basically just an accumulation of all of your efforts, learning on your own, the struggle that you had to deal with, making it in a male-dominated sport at the time. But tell us the significance of this gorgeous fish.
Oh yeah, that is the only walleye that I have mounted, and it's 26 inches, and I thought it was the biggest walleye in the Midwest at the time when I caught it. And I remember that I was fishing in a snowstorm with my dog. It was just me and my golden retriever named Keeper, and I had a tip up go up, and I went out, got this tip up, and I got this 26-inch walleye, and I about had a heart attack. It was the biggest walleye I had ever seen. The next day, I'm bringing it to the taxidermist like a newborn baby in a towel. Like, isn't this the grandest walleye you have ever seen? And she goes, well, yeah, that's a nice one. In retrospect, it's not even a big one, but it was so big to me. It was just so thrilling. And I had it mounted, and I haven't had another one mounted since, and I have no desire to, but that fish was it for me because I felt like I finally succeeded, and I was so proud. I was so proud of that fish. Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I love the backstory to it because, again, we can't even begin to understand the struggles that you may have faced, when you first started out. And I will say, obviously, there's 10 times more anglers down your side of the pond than there is up here. And with all of the challenges, let's say, it would be multiplied because of the number of anglers that you would have to come across, face, somehow exchange information. How do you do this, that, and everything else? So again, an accomplishment in itself, not just because it's a big walleye and a gorgeous walleye, but the fact that you persevered. That fish represents the level of perseverance you needed to get from where you started to where you are now. So that is a trophy that we can all share with you, Barb.
Yeah, it was the turning point for me. I think from actually knowing nothing to knowing a little bit. And you talked about staying humble, and it's like the more I learn about fishing and the more I know and the more skilled I get, the less I think I know, because there's so much more to know. And at that early on, I thought I knew so much. I thought I was a really good angler. And, looking back to how I was then, I was terrible. Now that I'm much more skilled, I think I don't know hardly anything compared to what there is to know.
Yeah, I hear you.
So cool. Yvonne, I have one more question for Barb, but I want to save it till the end. Before we let Barb go, and I know I can't believe the time has flown like it is, but it always does.
My God.
Yeah, it's crazy. Any last questions that you wanted to ask Barb?
No, I just, like I said, had a great time. Got to chit chat with the ladies at fish camp. Just wanted to say you impress me every day. Impress isn't the right word. I just share the joy, the different things that you post about, and that opportunity I got to talk to all the different ladies at the camp. It's incredible what you've built from a very small number of ladies to now having, was it 23 states? I think, and two Canadian provinces. It's just fascinating. And I just love watching the journey and hoping to continue to pop in every couple of years and see you in 3D.
Yeah, it's always so fun to hang out with you and some other Canadian gals that we have. And we just had a gal from Arizona sign up for our ice fishing class.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's I feel so lucky to be able to share opportunities with women out there, because that's what there is a lack of, is opportunities. So we're trying to create as many opportunities as we can. And you, Yvonne, do a great job creating opportunities up for your gals. And I know it's not easy. I know how difficult it is. And, hopefully the women that are coming behind us are going to have a much easier job, much more opportunities. And big hats off to you, Scotty, because that's a real, you can tell that means a lot to you. You put a lot of effort into, showcasing women anglers and sharing their message and doing what you can to get the word out. And that's the kind of stuff that really helps.
Yes.
I appreciate that. And I will say, Barb, I guess I was kind of naive, and Yvonne can attest to this. I always looked at anglers as anglers. It didn't necessarily matter what genitalia they had. I looked at you all as anglers. So when I saw that there was this distinct difference, that you had these challenges, you had these hurdles that you had to get over, it always puzzled me. I'm like, but it's just fish. Well, who does it matter? Anyway? But the fact that we've been able to share some of the challenges that you faced, Yvonne has faced, all the girls at LWA and GCFA, and just women anglers as a whole. I'm so glad to see that your numbers are starting to grow. Your events themselves are growing.
Right.
But the question I wanted to ask, which was something that was said, and I really, it was taken back by when I heard this. Did you serve in the armed forces at all?
No, I did not, but I was a police officer for 15 years before I got injured.
Officer, and you were a nurse.
Yep.
And you had more effect on folks' lives, on women's lives, I will say, more so than men's lives. But you've had more of an effect on women's lives because of fishing than your job as a police officer and nurse combined.
Absolutely. And when you look at the years, there's 20 years combined with both careers. Fishing and nursing was 20 years. This has been 20 years. And it holds true today. I mean, if you help women get a little confidence, learn some skills, and be more self-reliant, trust themselves a little bit more, and know, hey, I can do this no matter what it is. It carries over into the rest of their lives so much. Yeah. And fishing is just a way we kind of sneak in there to give it to them, but they carry it with them when they leave from the fishing event. And, a lot of women, the first time there, they don't even want to go in. They're nervous or afraid. They think they're not going to fit in. They think they're not going to be welcome. Mm-hmm. And within 15 minutes, they know they're welcome and they feel it, and they can kind of let their guard down and just suck it all in and absorb it and learn. And we teach like skills that need to know, like, hey, you have to, if you want a boat, you have to learn about wheel bearings. That's just part of the deal, So, and then if they think, if I know about wheel bearings, I can learn about my car, I can learn about this, or I can learn about that. It just opens up so many more doors because when they're brought up, they think they can't do things because society has them. They should be this way. You should be pretty. You should do this. You should do that. You should be attractive. You should do this. You should do that. Where we kind of remove some of those barriers and we say, we should do whatever the hell it is you want to do, and we'll help you do it.
When you go to a Wisconsin women fish event, there's none of that sitting in the corner. That's not allowed. You're hauled right up off your butt, and you're not forced. You're included right away.
You feel it. You feel it, and you feel like one of the big things that is so important to me is making everybody feel welcome. There's no cool kids club. Right. We're all cool kids, and we all have a place at the table. Doesn't matter who you are, and if you show up, we have your back. We will be your supporters, your educators, your friends, your mentors, and we are better together. Mm-hmm. And that's one of our other things we say, we are better together. Right. And that resonates through people. And that's what makes us successful. And that's what more people need. They want to be part of something that's something good, something positive, something supportive. And you can stand there and be proud that you're part of this.
Yes.
So true. I can't even, there's no way I could even carry on after that. That was so freaking well said. Hopefully you're going to run for office soon.
No. No.
I will ask, because we are going to leave with a video, and it's a video that I truly love because, as you say, you wear your heart on your sleeve. You don't hold back. Your emotions are raw. And that whole video that you did about sharing basically an ice report, how thick the ice was, you could just see, and we all wear that same disappointment as well as the equaled anxiety of wanting to get out on the hard water. but you also share a really, really important message at the end that I want to share with everyone as well. But before I do, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and you as well, Yvonne. As both of you have said in your own little way, you have meant so much to so many people, and we can't thank you enough for all that you do.
Well, I really appreciate it. Let's go fishing sometime, Scotty.
You got it, baby. We're going to do that. Absolutely. I'm so into it.
Yvonne, too. The three of us can go, and we'll bring Ricky, too.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
I'm so in. I am so down with that. Well, awesome. Again, ladies, thanks so much for joining us. I want to wish you both a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. Stay safe, and hopefully the ice gets a little bit thicker for you, Barb. It's not going to care for us.
I'm not 100-pounder.
So, without further ado, let's get to the video as we bid farewell to both Yvonne and Barb.
Okay.
Oh, darn. We thought there'd be enough ice just to go out and catch a fish and kind of feel that angst that we're feeling. But we just drilled a couple holes off the docks in the neighborhood, and there's like barely 2 inches. And I'm not 100-pounder, so I better wait. But, it's just not worth going for it, especially when you get close. The closer you get, the more excited you get. You got to use your head. Even though I want to go really, really bad, I'm not going to go because there's only 2 inches of ice. And although there's 2 inches where we're checking the next step, there might be only 1 inch. And, just think of your family when you're making these decisions and do the right thing. Just
There he is, the one and only Lawrence. How you doing, my friend? Lawrence Gunther from Bluefish Canada, Bluefish Radio. It is always an honor to have you here every Monday. And I will say this, after listening to that interview with Barb and Yvonne, I don't know, man, I get revved up when I hear that. And here's the thing, Lawrence. I mean, we all have a journey. We all have a story to tell. I just find it so engaging when Barb tells her story because it's raw. It's real. As she mentioned, good days, bad days. Some days were great with the boat. Some days it didn't go all that well. And she would share that. And she wouldn't sugarcoat anything. She just said it the way it was. And I think she is so awesome. And she is someone that this sport dearly, dearly loves to have around. So we're hoping that she sticks with us for a very long time because she's going to do some wonderful things along the way.
I think what really impresses me is it's not what you are, it's who you want to be, right? And here she is, she's been a nurse. She saw herself as a nurse and she went and became a nurse. She saw herself as a police officer and she went and became a police officer because that's who she saw herself at the time, and now she sees herself as a leader in the fishing industry and an outdoors person. And so that's what she's become, right? It's not about what you're born with. It's about who you see yourself being, and you just go after it.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'll tell you, no one's done it better than the two of those ladies when it comes to just setting a great example, being fantastic role models and mentors in the industry. Again, we are lucky to have them only as a reminder of how we need to be better. And, we talk about anglers from all different parts, all different nationalities, knowledge, ability, skills, you name it. But the fact that we are reminded that there's a group of ladies out there that are, setting a standard, and I don't know. I get so taken back by all of this, and I was really intrigued to hear that as a police officer, as a nurse, she added up all of the lives she affected during that time of her career. It doesn't come anywhere close to the number of lives that she has altered, changed, or had a positive impact on when it comes to angling and everything that she's done with the angling community. That for me is just tremendous.
Yeah. She's doing what she wants to do, and she's going after it, and she's sharing it, right? She's sharing it, passing it on, playing it forward, right? And I think that's all we ought to think about. That is, at some point in our life, how do we play this forward? How do we pass on all our knowledge, all our experience, and get it to the next generation? That's local knowledge. That's what we have to do.
And that's really, at the end of the day, that's all this is that we do every Monday night. It's just pass as much information as we possibly can onto our community, onto willing ears that want to learn, that are like sponges like us, and just thrive for that next bit of information that gets said. I do want to ask, because you paid you invested some time today in something that I truly wanted to be a part of, and just because of work, I just couldn't. It was a long seminar, but tell us a little bit about the seminar that Dr. Stephen Cook put on today, and of course all the presentations that went along with it.
Well, I tell you, it was a full day commitment. It started at 8:30 this morning. There was a half-hour lunch break, and it finished at 5 o'clock this afternoon. And I don't know how many presenters there were, but let's say the average, there was two time slots for presenters. There was a 15-minute time slot, and there was a 5-minute time slot. So you add up the hours, right, from 8:30 to 5, and then you divide that between 15 and 5s. You can just imagine how many scientists were popping up on the screen with their little PowerPoints, and every so often, Dr. Cook would get on there and say, "Okay, hey, come on, wrap it up. You got a minute," and just, he was running that sheep's hook out there and keeping everyone on time. We did go a little over, but there was always time for Q&A afterwards. And I thought that was neat. So what he did is he clustered it into groups. So common themes, and then he'd have a guest co-host for each theme that would sort of facilitate the panel discussion after that theme's discussion was finished. So it started off with, people that are looking at ways of trying to eliminate the weeds and that grow in front of their shoreline properties. They're finding all sorts of creative ways to destroy the weeds. And so these scientists set forth to try to figure out which one of these ways is least destructive for the aquatic life, and which one is most destructive. Is there one that's better than the other? Are they all bad? Are none of them that bad? And they like a scientist, they created a methodology, control groups. They went into two different lakes, Scugog and another lake, Canal Lake or something like that, or I don't remember the name. But then they asked the cottagers, the shoreline property owners, can you want to take part in the study? You need half of you to be control groups, which means you will not touch the weeds in front of your cottage for the whole year. You will not disturb them or destroy them, and the other half said, you'll do what you normally do, and which included a weed rake. They were going to rake the weeds out of the water, and underwater fans that would be turned on at night to blow the weeds out of the area. And I think there was one other option, I can't remember. They were going to purchase a giant weed grinding sort of harvesting machine, but at the last minute, they couldn't get insurance to operate it. When you're dealing with the young people and a giant piece of machinery, things can happen, right? And the company said no way. So they had to default to the manual operated weed extractors. But then they looked at the zooplankton, the phytoplankton, the minnows, the fish, the birds, and they really picked this thing apart. It was quite amazing. This, for these young scientists, sometimes it was their first time presenting in front of a crowd. And Scotty, there was a crowd. Like, I was going to go in, but it was snowing today. I was going to go over to Carleton and take it in person. And but you had an option to go on Zoom. And I'm logged on there, and I'm just listening to the logins. We were at 150 people logged on for that presentation, across Canada, some in the States. some of the other parts of the world, but he limited to Canada and the United States. So yeah, it was just Canada and the United States, and except one presenter, I can't remember, they were from Africa or something, but it was just 150 really hardcore people who care about nature. There was M&RF folks on there, DFO, Parks Canada, anyone who's ever funded programs, research, who had skin in the game. It was quite amazing.
That is amazing, truly amazing. And as I said, I think it gets back to what we've been talking about, you and I, for some time, about citizen science. Now you're putting a lot of this knowledge into the minds of folks like cottagers, folks like anglers, those that are have stake in water, stakeholders as a whole. But to get back to the grassroots approach of informing folks of some of the studies that are going on, some of the things that they're spending some time on to learn a little bit more. And I know Jay had said that there was probably a couple in there that, not to say that he wasn't interested, it didn't really pertain to what he wanted to learn.
No.
But the fact that it was such a huge, vast amount of information being served up in sort of one venue, that was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
They had another whole section on boat wakes, and I'm thinking, okay, there's boat wakes. So, and I'm thinking to myself, what angler who is on the water isn't interested in boat wakes? You got your wake zones, and everyone's debating is 10 mile an hour. Like if I go through that at 10 miles an hour, I'm plowing the biggest wake there is with my boat. So, I really should be doing 5 or 6 if I want to do no wake. Or go through it on plane, but you're not allowed to go out on plane. So, 10 miles an hour with a big fishing boat, you're plowing up quite the wake. So who makes up the science on this? And what is the science around wakes and boat wakes? So, and what kind of destruction does it cause? And so they had some scientists talking about that. And I was really interested in hearing the scientists talk about the different types of boats, right? Because you love boats, I love boats. We all know about boats. We're always poking at boats. We want to have a fleet of boats, all sizes and shapes for every occasion if we can, right? So, to hear these scientists, many of them don't have a lot of experience fishing and don't have a lot of experience boating. The one scientist who did the wake, some of the wake study, he has a canoe, so he did his research out of a canoe. And you could tell there was some weaknesses there. He was lumping wake boats in with deck boats. He never knew about deck boats, right? Never mentioned deck boats, but he thought they were all wake boats. So that was interesting. And to him, aluminum boats were fishing boats. All the aluminum boats were relegated as fishing boats. So there was no mention of bass boats or fiberglass DV boats. So, and no mention of pontoon boats at all. Probably for good reason. Houseboats weren't in there. Cruisers weren't in there. But, he had a few categories, and he did a study, and he observed a lot of boats over a period of a number of hours. I think maybe a week, 54 hours in total of observation. So and then he was measuring all these things on the shoreline and shorelines that were vegetated and other shorelines that were not vegetated. So they really dig into the minutia of this stuff, right? They can bury you in the minutia, but that's what science is. Ask a question, and they will take that question and explore it to every end.
And that's just it, at the end of the day. And this is the beautiful thing about what went on today, was because it served up a smorgasbord, basically a buffet of information, and you could pick and choose what you wanted to listen to. Perhaps maybe something that you weren't that interested in, but in terms of wakes, it is something that I want to say when I first started to dive into walleye management, it was probably one of the most endearing and most out there topics that when it talks about what has led us to the depletion of walleye. Everybody talks about overfishing. But one thing that was never discussed until it was brought up in probably a venue much like this was how early boating starts now compared to what it was back when, we didn't really have to do a lot of walleye management. Boats didn't really start revving around the lake until, the 24th, right? May 24th. That was pretty much the start of cottage season. Well, as we know, with weather the way it is, like, we aren't putting these boats away. And in a lot of cases, they're not away for very long because they're right back out doing the thing again. And when it comes to walleye, things that, I know I've talked about, when they hatch, when those fry first hatch for the first week, maybe 10 days, but first week anyway, first 7 days, they are in the first foot of the water column eating zooplankton. And unfortunately, what wasn't present, back in the day, which were, props in that first foot, now we've got hundreds of them. And, it can be a contributing factor to the depletion of walleye on a body of water. So it's just something to think about. But I just love the knowledge that gets passed on and things that you don't necessarily think about, where it's like, oh, I never thought about that. But yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
They had some presenters from the University of Illinois and some presenters in Canada. They were talking about, these sanctuaries, these temporary sanctuaries. And we saw, I think, a couple of those in Canada this year in Ontario, where, from April until 1st of July, you could not fish in certain segments of the water on a lake. And those were identified as prime bass spawning habitat. So they wanted to make sure that when the male bass went in there and made their nests, and then the females came, and then the males, looked after the brood for the next 6 weeks, right? Took care of the little bait ball, the eggs, and then the bait ball. And they wanted to make sure that those male fish had sufficient time to complete the task. And because the science shows that if they lose 30% of the eggs or the fry, they abandon that. So, and that can happen in a heartbeat. So they were presenting all this science and the reasons behind this, and the effects of, they looked at the research that they were able to generate from the year 2020, when COVID hit and no one was going fishing that spring. So that whole class of bass that were spawning that year was quite an impressive spawn, because they were unmolested. They said it's not that the bass season's open or not. It's just people go fishing. People go fishing with spinner baits or with worm harnesses or whatever they're going fishing with. And whether it's incidental, accidental, unintentional, or just ignorant, they catch fish off the beds and out of season, and they whoopsie, put it back. But even that can cause damage, right? It can be insurmountable damage. So they're saying that if you do this, and they've got the science to show now, they've gone into some of these areas where they've done 5 years of this kind of study, and they've shown that the population of the fish and the size of the fish is incredible. It's incredible if we follow these sort of temporary no fishing sanctuaries. That means you can't go pike. You can go pike fishing in the lake. You go lake trout fishing in that same lake, just not in these certain spots. Not all the spots, not all the best spots, but one or two strategic spots where they're just going to say, this is an area, no fishing area in here for 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
And you know what? At the end of the day, it's tough sometimes for us to understand and concede, because we don't like fishing opportunities taken away from us anglers. But when it's done for the sake of management and conservation, I don't think anybody has a problem buying into it.
No.
I think we're going to see perhaps maybe more of these sanctuaries get designated in the near future, which I know some folks are very hesitant to hear, but I think it for the sake of the fishery, it could be a very positive effect.
I agree, and if it's presented with their science, right? We ask, is this a problem? And we talk about it all the time. We see people out there targeting fish out of season, and they say they're after pike. We've all witnessed this, right? And maybe some of us have done it, thinking, what can it hurt? I'm not eating these fish. I'm putting them right back. But now we're knowing the science, and this science is telling us, it can cause damage. There was another whole discussion, Scotty, on how much to play the fish and how much time you spend playing the fish versus how much time you put the fish in nets. So, and the nets they were using were traditional nets, the sort of the long, sort of narrow, sort of what do you call those nets that the fish swim the muskie into beside the boat? Kind of hammocks, things,
yeah.
And then just releasing them by hand. So they had 3 types of releasing strategies: nets, hammocks, and by hand. versus fighting them with heavy gear or light gear. And which is harder on the fish? Which ones do they recover from faster? And what they found is that the larger fish, like the big muskie and the big pike, you're better off fighting them with heavy gear and getting them to the net. And they spend more time in the net because they're lively. So you have to have them in the net and unhooking them and handling them in the net and letting them go. So less time fighting, more time in the net. And that was better for muskie and pike. But for smaller fish, like bass and walleye and perch and things like that, more time fighting and then no nets at all. The best is just get them into your hands and release them right away and boom. And the least amount of handling is better. And they'll do better that way. So this is interesting. We always think, well, you got to right size your tackle, which means you use the tackle that's as powerful as you should to get the fish to the boat as quickly as possible. Which I think it kind of takes a little of the fun out of fishing, right? But I grew up fishing on small creeks with ultralight spinning gear, and so that was the only way to catch trout out of those creeks. But
what about a smallie on ultralight? Like let's be honest, there's no better fight than a smallie on ultralight tackle.
That's it, and you get them next to the boat, and boom, you pop your thumb in your mouth and crank their big, powerful little jaw open because they never want to open their mouth to let go of what it's in there, right? You've got them to get their mouth open, you pop the hook out, and they're gone, and they're fine. They're fine. So this is interesting research, right? This is interesting about right sizing your tackle, but based on, is it better to play the fish longer and handle them less, or play the fish shorter and handle them more using nets? So that was interesting. And not all the research came out on that because a lot of this was teasers. The scientists had conducted the research. They were giving some initial feedback, but they would still have a whole nother winter and fall and spring ahead of them to write it all up, do the analysis, get all the data from all the data points and do the charts and graphs and calculate all the what it all means. And then publish the article, which means getting it through peer review and then redrafting and editing and getting it into a journal before they're going to release all the facts. And that's the case with the muskie release data. When should you be taking muskie out of the water at all? How much air time should muskie be exposed to at different times of the year? And when should be not fishing for muskie? And so this will be interesting. There's a lot of people interested in that knowledge. Look, our rivers are getting warmer. Our lakes are getting warmer. You bringing fish out from deeper down from 65-degree temperature water up to the surface where it's 85 degrees, and then you're bringing them into the air that's maybe 95 degrees. What's the chance of that impacting the fish? They're talking in Alabama that they're going to put a slot size for fish possession for bass in Alabama because it's so hot. And they're finding that the 10-pound plus bass, when you bring them to the weigh-in and for a fish tournament, there's a 50 to 80% mortality rate for those big fish. So they're saying, if you want to do a tournament with where you weigh them in, they're going to put a slot limit. You can only bring in fish of a certain size. The smaller ones have to be let go, and the bigger ones have to be let go for the good of the population. Or just do catch, photograph, release tournaments, right? Because that's the alternative: catch, photograph, release. So there's people thinking about this, moving fish around. We saw that big catastrophe on the St. Lawrence River where they took all those smallmouth out of Lake Ontario and deep sections of the St. Lawrence in the middle of the summer, late July, early August, and they brought them into this bay where they had pumped the water out of the bay and into the holding tanks. And it was a live release kind of event, not a live release, but it was a full sort of water weigh-in system. Mm-hmm. But the water in the tanks was 80 degrees. And these were fish that were used to living in 60 degrees. Yeah. And they had an 80%, 90% kill rate on all the smallmouth bass. And that was just a disaster, total disaster.
It kind of doesn't need to be explained. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're when you are experienced, whether it's you as a human or if you have fins, experience that kind of temperature difference, it's going to have an effect on the ticker. as a human for sure. I can't imagine what it's like for a fish.
Yeah. Especially, you just fought your fight, right? You just fought your best fight. You lost. You're exhausted. You're stressed. Now you're out of the water. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
Just think about it, right?
And I don't want to jump on people who have deck boats, who have wakeboard boats, those boats that take on water, that create these enormous wakes. I can't, and I'm, as I guess as something that you scratch your head thinking, well, how important are wakes? Well, when you see the difference from the wake that a kayak casts to the wake that one of these wakeboard boats cast, you're doing some serious damage.
Oh yeah, they're huge, but it looks so much fun, right? But look, there's a lake I love to go fish for walleye, not far. It's about an hour and 15 minutes from where I live, and there's a resort there, and they bought themselves some wake boats, and they teach wakeboarding. And when those boats come out at noon, we pack it up and go, because it doesn't matter where you are on the lake, it just gets annoying. These things are just circling around. There's two of them out there, and the waves are just constant, right? And it's even on a calm day, these things are coming at you, and you're getting thrown around in your boat. It's just not pleasant anymore. So you have to start picking your time. Am I going to be out there for a whole day fishing? No, now it's you get out there for 5 and 5:30, and you're off the water at noon, which is not the end of the world, but it's sort of when you're planning on spending a day of fishing, it's kind of you get the half a day.
You got to find the balance too, and unfortunately, when it comes to these wakeboards, I don't know how you do. I really don't. It speaks to a certain type of sport that maybe back in my younger years I would have loved, but I guess as we get older, we get a little bit more conscious of the footprint, as they say, that we're leaving behind, the damage, destruction, what have you. But these wake boats, as cool as it is, I know there's a lot of cottagers that can't stand them, the boat owners that can't stand them.
Mm-hmm. And just you got something tied up at your dock, it's just you've got to get a boat. You got to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a boat lift.
Now, were they talking about these wakes in relation to spawning habitats as well, or was it just strictly about the force and destruction that some of these wakes leave behind?
It was mainly, I felt that was maybe a little weakness in some of the presentation on that. It was about shoreline. So it was about shoreline erosion. And whenever I hear about shoreline erosion, it's always about everything from the surface of the water on up, right? And I always think that's a weakness too. You're looking at everything that's happening that you can see with your eyes, and everything from the surface down, from that shore, from that edge where the land meets water. What's going on below there, and how's that being impacted? In terms of releasing all that sediment from the shore into the water. I have no idea. What does that mean? All the fertilizers and whatever is there. What does that mean? There is something though that was interesting that did come up, and I've been hearing these ads about this mosquito buzz kind of chemical that everyone says. They don't call it chemical. They said, tired of mosquitoes in your backyard? Call us. We'll make them go away for the whole summer. And I thought, what the hell is this? What are they doing in these people's backyards that make the mosquitoes go away for the whole season? Turns out it's very popular amongst cottagers. This is getting really popular. People have cottages. They want to enjoy their cottage. They want to be out there in the evening and the afternoon, where the mosquitoes are the worst. They just want to be out there and enjoying their property. And a lot of them are getting this mosquito buzz treatment on their properties. Turns out it's a sort of a pesticide. They're spraying their properties with pesticide and killing off the mosquitoes and all sorts of other bugs at the same time. But I don't think it's just mosquitoes, but it's just targeted towards mosquitoes. But so what is the impact on the aquatic ecosystem? I mean, this is right on the shore, right along the shore. These are shoreline properties. So there's got to be some of this going into the water, right? And what does that mean for the base of the food chain? Right there at the shore, where so much of that foundation of the food chain lives, that's the birthplace, that's the incubator, the shoreline. with all that little weed coverage and the warm water. It's like a petri dish. And if that's getting zapped with this overspray or runoff or whatever, what does that mean? So Dr. Cook says this is on his list of things to do. He's working towards this. So stay tuned. We're going to find out about that.
Interesting. Well, it's a great segue to the video that I downloaded that I wanted to share with you. It is very well descriptive, so you don't necessarily have to see it for what it is. It'll explain itself very, very well. But I think it's kind of a unique idea. I know for a fact it won't work here. And anyway, let me play it. Let me have you listen along, Lawrence, as well as everybody else. And I'll gauge your take on it.
Man releasing all of these fish into a drainage system in Japan. Actually, in Japan, the water is incredibly clean, and the fish play a crucial role in maintaining cleanliness and discourage people from littering. These fish grow in the drains and add to the city's beauty, symbolizing harmony between humans and nature.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
I was stunned to hear this myself. I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just a joke. Maybe it doesn't. But they're releasing, and what you're seeing are goldfish. They're koi.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they're koi and goldfish. And at the end of the day, let's be honest. We already have fish in these systems. And we don't necessarily need a reminder that we have to be good stewards of the land. But I thought this is an interesting concept that they're putting live fish in gutters and ditches just to show that they're basically the canaries in the system.
Oh my God. If you did that in Ottawa, you'd just be feeding the rats. We've got a rat problem in the city, and they come out your toilets, because our in the older parts of the city, the sewage and the storm drains are connected. So it's the same main pipe that takes it away from the street, from your house. But, so it's not unusual for rats to poke their way up your sewage pipe into your home and pop out of your basement toilet.
Holy smoke.
Put a little goldfish in there, you're really asking for trouble.
Holy smokes. Can you imagine?
And these are river rats, man. They're not your pet rats, right? These are big rats.
Dear Lord. Wow. All right. Remind me never to visit Ottawa again.
Just the old parts. Just the old parts. The newer parts you can go. No problem. It's the old parts downtown.
Well, you know what? And let's face it. Any big downtown core has their own level of rat infestation. Ottawa's no different than, say, Toronto, Brampton, or anybody else, or anywhere else for that matter. So
any of the older cities have these joint sewage stash storm pipes in them still, right? Like Arnprior, Pembroke, they all have it. Yeah. It's not the suburbs. That's more modern, where they divided the sewage pipes from the storm drain pipes, and they don't mix that stuff together. But in the heart of the cities, the original older parts of the cities all across Canada, we have this problem. That's why we have these sewage releases happening. When it rains and this storm water goes into the drains, and then it starts backing up the storm drains, the danger is that that's going to back up your sewage, and it's going to push sewage back into your home. So they have these valves, and they just pop the valves open and let it all just shoot into the river, and to get the pressure off the system before everyone's basement floods. That's the problem we have across Canada with the sewage releases.
100%. We have a couple minutes, my friend, for another news item. If you want to share anything that you're doing,
just put 8.5 pages of news items are in the newsletter, ready to go out. You think I could remember any of them?
Oh, that is hilarious. So
it's a blur. We'll do it next week. We'll do that next week. But there's some good, interesting things there for sure. A wide variety of news items. Some good things happening on community science, and so there's some good things happening. But if you're interested, the last Bluefish newsletter we put out was just a little summary of some of the things we've been doing over the year and talking about the Bluefish Exploration Center. So if you're not signed up for the Bluefish newsletter, visit bluefishcanada.ca, sign up for the newsletter. We're not giving away your emails, but very happy to have it. So come on, join us. And And I got some more Bluefish Radio episodes ready to go out. We're gonna interview the writer, director, and producer of that new documentary that just the Great Lakes Fishery Commission funded on the story of the collapse of the greatest freshwater fishery in the world, i.e. the Great Lakes, and how this all collapsed in the 1950s and 60s. We almost lost everything. Everything was just about, we're at the point where it's just about all to disappear. And the scientists got to it and discovered the problem and came up with an answer. It's an amazing story. And I'll leave it at that, but we'll be talking to that film is going to come out for streaming on January 31st. And we'll be talking to, like I said, the writer, director, producer, all one person, and maybe someone from the Great Lakes Fishery Commission about that story. But I don't want to give away the story. It's just like, man, this is like a science fiction thriller, my friend. It's crazy.
Looking forward to it. As I said, I love some of the new documentaries that you're starting to see show up on YouTube in your timelines. Folks are spending a little bit more time putting content together. And they're doing their research. And, I know a chap like George Morgan, who's in our audience tonight and most nights, I'm sure loves to see it as well, because it's getting folks to think outside the box. It's getting folks to do their research to learn more. So when you do have an opinion on a topic, it becomes a little bit more educated than just whether you like it or you don't.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And the podcasts, the YouTube videos, it really is like you read the credits on who's behind, and there's a list of people. You think, it's not just one guy sitting in his office doing this. Like, there's collaborators, right? And and that's what you have to do if you want to do a good job. You have to have a bit of a team now to really do a nice job. It's people expect it. The bar's been raised.
I will say, in terms of team, I'm very proud of the one that I work with each and every Monday, including yourself, Lawrence. You guys make my job so much easier. And of course, the amount of just vast wealth of information that is shared every Monday. I truly can't thank you folks and lads enough.
It's coming up for my 50th anniversary, not so far along now, and but I missed Big Jim tonight, and that's pretty rare that he can't make it. But we're thinking of you, Big Jim, because we know you're watching, probably.
Absolutely, buddy. And as I said, he just needed some rest, much needed rest.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I think he earned it.
Oh my God.
I think he's earned it.
Yeah. He doesn't take a day off without a reason.
No, you're 100% right.
Few and far between.
100% right. Well, listen, Lawrence, as always, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing the newsletter and, of course, what you're going to share next Monday. In the meantime, stay safe. And if you get to wet a line, we look forward to seeing the pictures.
Oh, can't wait, buddy. Can't wait.
You'd be both. Dude. Have yourself a great week.
You too, man.
All the best. We got Jason Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
It's not often that, sometimes we don't necessarily listen to the words, to the message, but there's a great message in that anthem for Berkeley that I think a lot of folks, they need to live their life with that as a template. At the end of the day, we are going to fail. That's the whole purpose of trying is failing, so that we know not to do that or this the next time. But some great messages. And of course, I know you were listening intently to Barb, Carey, and Yvonne. Again, both of them, just I'm intrigued by both of them. But Barb is she's a unique cat, and I tell you, I every chance I get to have a conversation with her, I will never pass it up. She is intriguing as all get out.
Yeah, I love hearing about the OWA and their adventures, man. And I tell Yvonne regularly that I'm envious of all their activities that they do and how they pull it off.
They're busy. They got a lot of events. There's a lot going on in OWA, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I appreciate, that it's it's women only, but I'm jealous, man. I'm jealous of their community and how they have that. And I've come from some great fishing clubs in the past, and some of those clubs are still going. And I know the work it takes to have an organization like that function and to be successful. And just seeing how many events they pull off tells me how strong that organization is. And I encourage anybody who wants to try fishing, and not even if you're interested in fishing, you know what, if you just want to hang out with a bunch of cool girls and learn, and sort of it's a very sisterhood environment, do it. Absolutely do it. Yeah. I think it's awesome. And I love Yvonne's guests. When you do ladies night, you always have some great guests, Scotty. And I get the lucky part some nights. I get to sit back and take it all in. And there's nights like tonight where I wasn't even in the comments. I was just listening to what was being said. I'm down here fiddling away on my fishing stuff, which is what I usually do, to be honest. Monday nights are I'm like, I'm going to work on this tonight and that tonight while I'm listening, especially when you have guests on. Not that I don't listen to the guys, but I really enjoy listening to people that I haven't necessarily met before, except for maybe through this show previously, right? But I love hearing their stories and hearing her talk about Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and 50-pound lake trout. And yeah, when she mentioned that 50-pound lake trout, I actually sat back down in my chair and I was over here doing fishing stuff, and then I came right back here, and I'm like, I want to hear more about this 50-pound lake trout. So yeah, it was awesome. Great interview, man. Yeah.
Well, and as I said, it makes it easy when you have a good team behind the scenes, and we are lucky each and every Monday to put on what we do and do what we do for the sake of the people who appreciate it. But again, there's a lot of cogs in this wheel, and we would be nothing without them. So yeah.
I agree, man. I agree.
Now, obviously, you participated as well today in that seminar. What was your take on some of that?
I think it's great. I think that what's important, I'll take kind of the high level approach here, because Lawrence talked about some of the specifics about what was talked about. And, I think that what's important to mention is, and Lawrence did touch on this slightly, but these events are so important to future scientists, biologists, technicians in and I'm not just going to say fisheries predominantly, but also just natural resources management, right? And this is the sort of arena where they come from, and they are challenged with a question. They have to answer that question using science, and some of that science is biological science, ecological science, but also science within the human realm, looking at social science, right? And understanding some of those things, understanding, who's buying boats, how big of the boat is causing the wake, at what speed. These are all things that have implications to angling and to protecting our resources, right? Some of the stuff is a little controversial, talking about some of these sanctuaries. There are sanctuaries in Ontario, and they've proven to work quite well in some cases. But in some cases, they probably cause more, not harm, but social harm. People get mad. It's our resources. You can't take that away from me. So there's difference of opinion on it, but I think if things are defensible, then it should be done. Yeah, and then the one student put up a picture, George's comment. I did drop a couple comments in the chat today, because this young man named Mike, he was doing surveys in the Rideau River, and he had a beautiful picture of a male tessellated darter. Now, people may not know what a tessellated darter is. In fact, it's almost identical to a Johnny darter, which most people know what a Johnny darter is if you're a CFN member. But in Ontario, tessellateds are pretty much found in Eastern Ontario. They have one extra dorsal ray. When darters have that beautiful dorsal ray, right? Dorsal fin. So they have one extra ray in their dorsal fin versus a Johnny, basically. There's a couple other subtle features, but so they're almost identical. Genetically, they're different, and but they're pretty much an Eastern Ontario fish. the dividing line is somewhere around Durham. That's where they kind of split. So if you see a Johnny darter in like Bay of Quinte, you know, the Moira River, all the way out to the Rideau, the Ottawa River, in the St. Lawrence, those are mostly tessellated darters out there. There is a bit of overlap, but not much. So, you know, I love listening. I just, at the end of the day, I can hear all this science, but I love a good fish picture, right? So the tessellated darter showed up, and that was a pretty cool thing to do. So
it's awesome.
But not quite a fish topic, but I'm sharing a photo if you want to put it up there, Scotty, because I got to talk about what we did this past weekend. So it
is. Yes.
There we are. So the top picture is I'll start on the left. There's Trevor. Well, there's a minion. Then there's the other minion, Trevor, and Owen, and myself. And then in the middle, there's Judy, and then Becky, which is Owen's mom, and then my beautiful wife, Heather, and then John. Now, John and Judy, John is the president of the Long Point Bay Anglers Association. And we did this last year. John's like, I'd like to put the live release boat in the parade as a float. And we had such a good time last year when John asked us a few weeks ago. We said, absolutely, we will do this. And so we did the float this year. We got it. I'm going to share one more picture if I can find it. One sec. Right. Yeah, I'll share this one. So this is us doing our thing, walking the parade route.
Cool.
And it was a ton of fun. Gave out candy canes. There was a bit of a running joke with the candy cane, Scotty, is I gave them out to everybody. Didn't matter whether you're a little kid, big kid, everyone got a candy cane, right? So
well, you're not supposed to?
Well, I don't know. Like, I think people just want to give them out to kids, but I'm like, I made a lot of seniors happy giving them candy canes. Like, there were some seniors sitting up on their deck and just watching the parade go by. And so, dude, I worked up a sweat. I put in some serious kilometers in that parade because I was running up and down the lawns. In fact, one house, and I probably shouldn't admit this, but I will. I saw one house as we're coming up, and they were all dressed in like Christmas sweaters and hats. And I said to Trevor, I go, are they having a barbecue? Are those condiments? Dude, it was a table full of booze. They were having like an all-day drinking party on the side of the road. So I had a couple shots of Bailey's with the Grinch. So I don't have that picture handy, but we had a heck of a time, man. It was great. Santa came. Santa loves fishing, by the way. If anyone knows this, Santa always comes to Turkey Point every summer, and he winters or summers in Turkey Point, by the way. Wow. Loves Lake Erie, loves fresh walleye, loves smallmouth bass, loves largemouth bass. And so Santa really did a great job. And we raised, I say we, like not so much us, but the whole parade. And there was a food drive for the local food banks. And we raffled off Christmas trees for the London Children's Hospital, raised another $2,000 for London Children's Hospital. It was just a wonderful day. And when we were done, we went and I took Heather and Trevor. We went, and Stephanie came later. We got some great pictures with if anyone's on Facebook, check out my profile picture. It's our family photo, which is like getting our family photo with Santa after the parade is like our new. This kicks off our Christmas season in this house. Does that make sense, Scotty? Like everyone has that one event. I think when the kids were in grade school, we always had the Christmas concert. You know, remember the little sing song with it was the most hideous singing you've ever heard in your life, but it was also the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And I think the Santa Claus parade and supporting the great charities that we support down in this area through fishing, through our friends. I've talked about this before on the show. Fishing is so much more than fishing. Yvonne touched on that tonight. Like here we are doing a fish themed Santa parade, right? It was fantastic. And even our local MP, our MPP, Bobby Ann Brady was there. And she even made a comment, like, she's like, these are the fishing guys. You guys are the fishing guys. Like, and she actually plays hockey with Owen's mom. And so there's this cool connection with minor sports because the boys used to play baseball. And everyone just like, it's Jay and these two turkeys that hang out with me, and we're just the fishing guys. It's great. Love it. So, and those two guys love it. And yeah, I hope they keep coming out to the parades as they get older. And you know what? They did it for volunteer hours. Now they just do it because they want to. And it's awesome.
And that's what it's all about. And that's, of course, what everything's about when it comes to fostering the next generation, whatever that is, whatever it is that we're talking about.
It is.
One thing I did want to get back to in regards to the seminar that happened today, something that I think you had maybe mentioned, but I think it's important to mention. When I was starting to learn about walleye and the management of walleye, how to perform aquaculture with them, the whole 9 yards, a lot of that information was not readily available. Yep. And a lot of it had to do with not the fact that folks were doing a lot of research behind the scenes, but a lot of it wasn't getting shared. So when I asked, like George mentioned 25 different seminars. Yeah. Any of what you learned today, is any of that being published, or has it already been published?
So it's a real mix. A lot of it will be published eventually. Okay. It's all very preliminary. So a lot of these graduate projects are right in the midst of it, and some of them aren't even started yet. It's like the grad student just started, but when they start, they have to make a presentation, a proposal to their graduate committee, which consists of usually a couple of professors. And so some of these young scientists, like one young lady, she came up, she goes, her study is going to look at the impacts of light pollution on fish. So she's going to look at like urban areas and non-urban areas. Okay. So light areas and dark areas, and the impact of light pollution on fish. We hear about the impact of light pollution on birds and on wildlife. Yep. And even there's even data out there on light pollution on us.
Yes.
And we're exposed to it too much in living in these urban areas. And so she's going to explore the light pollution on fish in the aquatic system by having these devices underwater that you can get devices like when they study like rainforest depletion, right? You can look at, as you open up the canopy, there's devices that measure the amount of light that comes through. Well, she's going to do that underwater. I think that's a really cool project. So no data yet, but she presented her proposal that she convinced people to study. Does that make sense, Scotty? Because, it's like no different than you going to your boss and you make a presentation. Here's a new thing we want to do. I got to present that. So these young professionals are coming into graduate school and they have to make a presentation. And I thought so that was one example of some of these talks that hadn't even gotten off the ground yet. And she's going to have her challenges. Like, I'm sure that some things won't work out, but that's what we have to roll with the punches, especially when you're working. You're not even in a lab, dude. You are outside. You are dealing with Mother Nature. There was a talk about turtles. I didn't even know this about turtles. So they're studying map turtles in these lakes. And a lot of the work is based in the Rideau Lakes area because Queens has the biological station just north of where Jim lives, up on Lake Pennicott, right near Newborough Lake. And this one researcher, I believe a PhD student, he was looking at map turtles and where they winter under the ice. And he had these cool images of map turtles like stacked up underwater, under the ice, like on the bottom. And he actually mentioned and discussed how otters are kind of making a bit of a comeback in Ontario lakes. I haven't seen otters most of my life, but every time I seem to go to the Kawarthas now fishing, I see an otter, especially in those shield lakes like Upper Pigeon and Stony. And anyways, this gentleman was talking about how otters are feeding off the map turtles. These map turtles are under the ice and they're basically hibernating. They're dormant. They're just laying there almost like a pile of so they're turtles that's like cobble. So all the turtle shells are just stacked on top of each other. But the otters are going under the ice and they're finding these areas of turtles and like just eating them. They're not eating them all, but they're feeding on these hibernating turtles that the otters have found, because otters are pretty smart animals, right? So I was impressed. They found these turtles wintering. Now I guess they tagged some and they tracked where they went, and then they tagged a few, tracked them to like their wintering area where they were all stacked up, and then they had game cameras on the shore looking onto the ice where the wintering areas were, and there was pictures of otters like moving it in under the ice during different winter periods.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That is so awesome.
So so you have presentations where it's literally the infancy of the project, and then you have ones where they have lots of data coming out, and all of these will come out. They might not come out like the otter and the turtle one. That's not really a fisheries project, right? But that'll come out through some sort of wildlife journal of some kind. And most of these will be published in the primary literature. And what's great about Steve Cook's lab is I don't know for sure, but I think on his lab's website, which is you look under Steve Cook, Carleton University, and I don't have it handy, but they share most of their journal papers on his website as PDFs you can click and download. And so as the graduate students publish, no matter what journal they're in, because sometimes you have to pay for journal subscriptions, but some of the researchers out there have a philosophy that this information should be for everyone,
right? Not
just a paid subscription in a journal, right? So sort of that free access idea. And I think that's how it should be too, because how else can you promote what you're doing, what your lab's doing, and get people out there who are concerned about these things? Like on this call today, and Lawrence mentioned this, but like a lot of the participants were cottage associations and stewardship groups from Scugog and from Canal Lake. And oh my goodness, like a lot of these lakes have lake associations, and a lot of them aren't anti-fish. They just want to make sure that the lake is taken care of long-term. So there was really cool talks about invasive species and stuff, and just seeing it was such a mix of academics and managers and non-government organizations on the call today. Really, really cool.
And then because I remember going to stakeholder meetings, but this is something unique. I don't know, has a seminar ever been broadcasted like this to the general public?
No, and this is all because of COVID. This is all because of COVID. And I can look back for me professionally, and COVID has really opened doors for sharing information. Like, I would have to decline requests to give lectures at universities and colleges to students who want to learn about like how to be a biologist, how to be a technician. Like I would have to turn them down because I'm like, I can't, like to drive to Fleming College and back would take me like an entire day. And I've done it before, but maybe I can't take a whole day because I got meetings to go to and things. But now I can jump online and give like an easily an hour and a half lecture to a class remotely. I'd rather be there in person shaking hands, but I can reach more people virtually now. And that's what's happened. And so Steve and his and it wasn't just Steve Cook. There was Andrea Kirkwood was on there. There was a bunch of professors who from different schools, Carleton, Ottawa U, University of Ontario Technology, which is in Durham near Simcoe Street. So there was, and kind of each school was part of a session. There was 4 sessions today, and each session had like a prof at each school leading it. So there was a bunch of schools involved, and a lot of these, again, you're right. Historically, these weren't available to us, or maybe they were on YouTube after the fact.
Yes.
Now it's real time on Zoom with 150 people calling in from, you name the group. There was people on there from Trout Unlimited, from OFAH, from almost every conservation authority. It was amazing. And for me, like I was working today. Actually, today I had a bunch of health and safety audits to do. This is our annual time of year where I'm reviewing safe work procedures. We have to do that periodically, right? So, Scotty, you know this in your line of work. Like, I have a safe work procedure for seine netting, and every 3 years we have to review the safe work procedure so that we don't get in trouble from the OSH people that aren't even in our building. Like this is like federally OSH, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm doing my edits, but I'm listening to the call, and it was cool to just hear some of the great conversations going on and checking the chat board. It was great.
See, and I think too the virtual aspect cuts down, because I remember, and this, I don't mean to bring up negative stuff, but
yeah,
I know some of these stakeholder meetings that we would have that I would be invited to, there was a lot of bickering.
Yeah.
And I think the Zoom call deviates away from a lot of that bickering that could happen, or uncomfortable dialogue that is shared at some of these stakeholder meetings. Because like there was a couple where it was just like, holy Hannah, why?
Yeah,
is there a ring? Are people going to be jumping into a ring anytime soon?
No, it's true, man. Like I'll tell you, 2 years ago when I was up with the boys at the Stony Lake kayak qualifier, we stayed in Buckhorn at this place called Three Manors Resort, and it's on Lower Buckhorn. So when you're driving in the town of Buckhorn, one side of the road is upper and one side's lower. So they were on Lower Buckhorn, and we stayed in the units there. And the owner, and I want to believe his name's Eddie. And if I'm wrong, Stephanie will tell me because she remembers everything. But he sat on the FMZ 17 council in Peterborough when I was on the same council as I was a Bassmaster member on the council. So Muskies Canada was there, Bass Nation was there, OFAH was there, but so were a bunch of the resort owners. So were a bunch of the fisheries groups, right? And MNR was there and DFO was there. And we did things with that council. Like we started ice fishing in the Kawarthas. After 50 years of no ice fishing in the Kawarthas, we brought that back. We helped reduce the panfish limits in Ontario. But that didn't go well with some of the resort owners, right? So and so Eddie was one of those guys. And but we had but him and I had a very awesome conversation. And I mean that in the best conversation. We sat, once we realized that we were both on that council, and this was 2007 when I walked away from that council because I moved, and the council faded soon after that because they just never kept it going. But from 2005 till 2007, I was on the Fisheries Management Zone Council for Zone 17. And and Eddie was one of the guys who was not happy with the fact that we were cutting down on panfish limits. We changed the rules on walleye too. We didn't change them, but we helped to influence change. And some of that, it was tough love though, Scotty. You don't want to take away fishing opportunities, but you look at the modeling data, right? The stuff like what George and others are developing, and you look at that and you're like, these are the scenarios that we have to deal with if we don't make a change, right? And yes, it's a forecast. Yes, there's confidence limits. We don't know the answer. We can't crystal ball this, but these tough choices were made. But one thing that's disappointing is that we've lost a lot of these councils. MNR has lost they've lost their way when it comes to that. And I really hope they bring the councils back. The one area though that we struggled with was the FMZ 16 where I am, right? Because it's so diverse, Scotty. You have Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake St. Clair, muskie, walleye, trout, salmon. It's the most people live here in Zone 16. Lake Simcoe's in Zone 16. Now it has its own council, but how do you manage? Dude, I'm in Delhi. And you have people in Tobermory and people in Sarnia. How do you pull a council together? That's crazy, right?
It is crazy. It is crazy.
But it needs to be done somehow. And I hope that at some point we can get there because there's so many great people out there, great folks who could bring so much information to these councils, right? Guys like yourself, just bring that. It's hard at these councils because you're so passionate about what you believe in, and then it turns into an argument because you're passionate and you don't mean it, but it does happen. And the trick to the councils was making it function. You have a way to make a decision though. We had to come up with ways of, okay, we got to learn to vote on things. It's going to be democratic, and you may not get what you want every time, but everyone gets a vote. Does that make sense, Scotty? 100%. We had to work through that. We had to figure out basically what quorum was. We had to actually, in the FMZ 17, we actually had meetings about voting, about quorum, about how are we going to get anything done if we don't have a means to get there, right? But once we got over those initial hurdles, things went really well. And we had some great presentations, not just from the fisheries professionals, but from the stakeholders themselves. right? From hearing about the situation on Rice Lake with most of the resorts were at the time weren't even winterized. So like opening up to ice fishing, who's going to ice fish? There's no one to ice fish. Like there's nowhere to stay, right? So just things like that were happening. This, and George mentioned that 2 decades ago when there was a lot of momentum, right? So
incredible. And as I said, think about some of these structures that we've had, groups, special interest groups, like you talked about. We've had these folks in place, and they've been working diligently behind the scenes for so many years. Some had a greater effect than others. Let's be honest, but it didn't take away from the passion, as you mentioned, as well.
Well, the FMZ 20 Council still going, Lake Ontario, right? That's what's driving a lot of the work in Toronto Islands, Hamilton Harbor, Bay of Quinte, right? Like even though Bay of Quinte is great for walleye fishing, they keep their thumb on it because they want it to stay great. And then in FMZ 20, which for folks on the call, that's Lake Ontario. So you have everything from making places like Hamilton Harbor better, but then you also have let's keep Bay of Quinte, let's keep it great, right? Yeah. So and everyone's involved, and some of the data that in presentations that comes out of the Glenora Fisheries Assessment Unit at a Picton area, like they're presenting to the council, and there's charter captains and OFEH and other groups that still sit on that council. It's still a very active council. So they're not gone, but we need more of them. We need more representation from each zone. We really do.
Amen. No, well said. Jay, I know when it comes to ice fishing, George is probably talking walleye on Rice Lake because he wants to take away some of the direction and attention, I should say, from Lake Nipissing, which is starting to harden up. We are starting to see some ice reports now with this weather that has just passed through and is going to pass through tomorrow. I don't know what some of this ice is going to look like, but as Jim had mentioned last week, it takes a lot longer for ice to disappear than it is to make. So
I heard rumors of some donkeys up on Scugog this weekend, and it's so and look at today, it's going to go up to +7 tonight. Like I know we've had freezing rain for, it seemed like, well, I'm in Burlington, excuse me, but everything from like Milton north got freezing rain this afternoon, and then everywhere south got rain, or we got rain in the morning mostly down here, and then as it moved across, the temperatures, you guys started out cool this morning, it just never warmed up enough. Is that right?
100% right. And we were teetering back and forth between ice pellets and freezing rain for the majority of the day. I think it was probably around 2-3 o'clock that it finally started to subside. But we were dealing with elements, and apparently there's another wave of it coming tomorrow. So who knows what tomorrow will
so there's more rain coming tomorrow, and we don't know if it's going to be like there's this whole gradient of it too. Like I was on a call this afternoon with a colleague from the Sault Ste. Marie office for DFO, and Bill, and he's like, we're at March levels of snow. Like by March, the snow yards are full, right? He's like, we're full because of all the snow they've had from the lake effect snow up there. Like that's crazy. And they were getting freezing rain today. So it was mild all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie where they were getting freezing rain. So, but all of that heavy snow in those snowbelt areas is not good for making ice either, right? So, and there's no way those lakes were froze before we got the snow. So there's some really tricky situations up there, even if you get the cold. It looks like I'm not going to lie, dude. I look at the long range forecast. I sit there and I don't know what magic I need to do to make ice. Like I will sacrifice. I will, if I have to go outside and I don't know, gut a squirrel or something, I don't care. Like whatever I have to do to make this happen. But it's looking like kind of around Christmas time. I think some of the back lakes around Haliburton and Minden, like north of there, will have safe ice if the weather trends kind of continue. But I don't see any for sure things yet. Even Trevor was hoping I could plan some ice fishing trips over the holidays. Like, Dad, let's put some date in the calendar so I make sure I'm not working. And I'm like, dude, I can't. I can't plan it. Like, Mother Nature won't let me. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Yeah, exactly.
So true.
Yeah. And
what we would
I hope
do,
it happens. I hope it happens
I do
sooner or
too.
later.
And we're going to try and do our best to try and push it forward, just to foster it along a little bit. Next week, what we'll do, I think it would be a great topic if we talk about species-specific fish and how to target, how and what you use to target them. Obviously, there's only a certain species that we're fishing normally through the ice, but they're pretty much across Canada when it comes to what species they are. So it would be interesting to hear everybody's take on.
Yeah, and I think like we can be kind of specific around things like, what do we see first in the early part of the year? It's usually like stocked trout lakes, so splake and brook trout. What would you target? Panfish. A lot of the big lake fish like walleye, lake trout. Those, no one's chasing those in most of Canada. I should say everything south of the 49th parallel is pretty open right now, right? Yeah. So we have to wait and see what happens. But dude, I mentioned this to you before. Like, it's a good time of year just to start taking things apart, man. Yeah. Like, I'll give everyone a tip. Like, and this is something everyone should do, and I know not everyone does this. Like on your bait caches, like I was doing this tonight because I still have. We were out bass fishing a couple weeks ago, right? So I got rods to put away, but like, just take off your brake, back your brake off, back off your cast control knob, right? So that's this knob right here. Don't make it like loose so it pops off. Just back everything off so everything's not sitting. And then I can just take this. I still have some good braid on there, so that reel's good to go next year. And when I put it on in the spring, I won't remember to tighten the drag, and then I'll hook into a plank or something, and then the drag will go everywhere. But that's my fault. That's not mechanical failure. That's failure for me. And like everything still works, so I make sure that I might add a drop of grease in there in those handles, but everything's spinning great, so I'm not worried about it. And then on your spinning reel, do the same thing. Just back that off, that drag so it's nice and loose, and what I do is I actually have like Rubbermaid totes with bubble wrap, and I lay them all in. It's like I'm laying out Easter eggs. So you put your reels in, bubble wrap, more reels on top, and then just put the lid on, and it goes on the shelf, and the reels they sit. And I don't know about you, man, but I don't service my reels a lot. Like I beat the hell out of them, but I find if anything, most people put too much oil and grease on their reels, and I usually don't service them until I really have to, or something started to maybe like some of my steelhead reels, they get some service because they get a little more beat up out in the mud and in the water more. But then dude, like I don't even know if I have one handy. Like some of my like these ones, like these little 1500s, and like these reels get year-round use. They don't even get a day off. Like these go right from the trout rod to the walleye ice fishing rod, right? So
and you have to be very specific on what gear oil you use for those reels, especially if you're using them in the wintertime. I did make a mistake years ago using something that had a water base to it, and found out the hard way why not to use it.
There's Trevor's in the chat. Tomorrow night's rod put away night. It's a mess. Yeah, the basement's a mess, dude. Like I've said to Trevor that we need to put everything away down here, and open water season is done except for some trout fishing stuff, which we'll keep some stuff out. I was talking to Creek Candy Randy last night on Instagram, and he's like, dude, we need to go fishing together. I'm like, I know I want to fish with you, man, but the steelhead is just now we got some rain today, so maybe things will pick up. But dude, the water's been so low. It's just I'm not gunning for them just yet. But you know what'll happen, dude? Over Christmas holidays, I got a few days off. We'll get a little more snow, a little more rain, probably catch a few steelhead. And then the season will close on the 31st, and hopefully we're out ice fishing. That's what's going to happen. So,
amen, brother.
Oh, Attila, don't worry about the braid freezing. Braid does freeze, but I'm going to give you a tip, buddy.
Oh,
there's some lines out there. So like Fireline, if you can get your hands on Berkeley Fireline, it's got that coating on it. Very little of it freezes. And to be honest, I fish in a hut so much that braid isn't a problem for me. I don't know about you, Scotty, but I fish in a hut so much that I fish outside a little bit. As long as I don't get my reel wet, I don't have an issue with freeze up. But if it gets wet, sometimes I just grab another one, because the beauty part about ice fishing, I usually got about 4 of these babies with me when I'm out there, maybe even like 6, right? So yeah, but that can happen for sure. So
good show. Well, on the eve of what should be, I think, a very well-received hard water season, because people are truly excited, as we saw on one of the videos with Barb, how disappointed she was that she didn't have the thickness. Trust me, we all feel that. We all empathize with you, Barb, because we're all but hopefully sooner than later we will have a hard water season that is long overdue. Yeah, and we will discuss everything when it comes to species-specific patterns and tackle to target. We'll be talking about that next week on next.
That's awesome. Yep.
Right on.
I love that. I love that kind of homework assignment, buddy. Bring it on. That's great.
Right on. Right. Okay, my friend. Well, as always, Jay, thanks so much for everything that you do for us, bring to us, and of course, bring us up to date with. But more so than that, just for everything that you've done in the industry. As we said to Barb, as we said to Yvonne and anybody else, dude, we'd be a long way from where we are now if we didn't have you a part of it. So keep up the great work.
Buddy. I appreciate you. See you next
Right
week.
Take care. All the best, Jay. There it is. What a fantastic show it was. And it's always a pleasure when you get a chance to talk to Yvonne. Jay, Lawrence, Jim, we're thinking of you, bud. Hopefully you get some rest tonight. But, of course, big shout-out to Barb. I think she is she's the coolest. And she lives a cool life and has done so much good and positive reinforcement to our fishing and angling community, and of course for lady anglers in particular. It's a movement, and I tell you, there's no trophy that you're going to possibly reward her with that will encompass all that. But I will say this: we will do our best to try and highlight it as much as we can along the way. But keep up the great work, Barb. Truly appreciate everything that you are. We'd be pretty lackluster kind of angling community without you. That's all I'll say. Anyway, on that note, thanks for all of you for joining us. Again, we're going to be back here on Monday next week talking about everything ice fishing. And on Wednesday, we will also be greeted with some great guests, Christella and hopefully Jessica. But my main man, Dan, we will be talking about tournaments and some of the hard water tournaments that are going to be coming up north. So stay tuned to that. In the meantime, have yourselves a great week. Take care. Stay healthy. Love you all. And we can't thank you here at CFN enough for all of your support. Dave, it's time to take us away. Have yourselves a great week. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.